How long have we been talking for, by the way?
I don't know.
37 minutes, maybe.
Can I just say, this has been amazing. I've been loving this conversation so far. Do you have anything else to add?
I don't.
Okay. Thank you. It looks like I was preparing myself.
I will decline to add anything.
Okay. Anywho, that was a fantastic conversation, guys. Thank you very much. All right, Jonah, you mentioned a point, and I want to talk about it. You mentioned quote-unquote homosexual marriage. All right, I know it was kind of like a passing by comment, but you do work in law.
I do.
What's your field?
Just commercial law to keep it nice and simple.
Yeah, nice and simple. Yeah. So, your job is to, if I can put it simply, act on the law or the precepts of the law, either defend it on whatever. The law is doing or has legalized what Catholicism says is immoral.
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, and then this is just more of a personal question: do you have a divide within yourself? Like, is this always like a constant struggle for you, or you're like, nah, stuff this, I'm Catholic. Like, it doesn't matter what my occupation is.
Yeah, good question. I think until there's a conflict, everything's fine. As soon as there's a conflict, we've got a problem. So there are plenty of ways in which the Catholic faith and the Catholic teaching and believing in God and the religious life will not infringe upon the law and vice versa. Like I'm dealing with contracts. What the High Court has said about the interpretation of contracts has no bearing on Catholicism whatsoever. So in that sense, my area doesn't really lend itself towards that sort of thing. But definitely where the law makes it okay for people to do things that obviously, morally, from a Catholic standpoint, we believe is immoral or should not be done, there's a real conflict there. And that was especially prevalent in university, for sure,
Oh, you must have had cracker conversations at uni.
Uni was uni was interesting. It definitely developed the debater in me, for sure. And I was, I've got a great group of probably 7 or 8 friends from uni who I still see regularly, and I'm the only Catholic in the whole group. I've got there's 2 people who are Jewish. There is I guess a couple who are atheist, agnostic, we'll call it. One is, I guess, particularly, let's say, anti-Catholic is probably the best way to put it. But atheist with gusto, and then there's myself, right? And we all get along really well. But you best believe we've had some absolute zingers and arguments over the years about what should or should not be allowed. And I think particularly where people take, originally the law was meant to codify what we as a society knew was right and wrong, and that's how we put it in a law, so that this is the right thing to do, and if you don't do it, you're going to be punished.
Yes.
Because this is the way things are meant to be. And people have often made arguments about we've legalized homosexual marriage, that must make it okay, or it's okay now. And I've always had the argument of, okay, well, let's say we pass a law tomorrow that says it's okay to discriminate against gay people. Even though it's a law, it's legally allowed, would that be okay? That's a very good way. Of course not. Why? Because it's the wrong thing to do. And so that's how I usually frame my argument as, well, I don't really care what the law says, because unfortunately for a long time now, what has been legally allowed and what has been morally allowed, there's been a lot of diversion, a lot of difference. And the law in particular, unfortunately, is becoming increasingly progressive and very much flying in the face of Christian or Catholic values, and I don't like saying the word conservative, because I think I'm a Catholic before I'm a conservative. I just think a lot of Catholics fall into the conservative bucket. But if in 3 years we completely redefined what our political landscape means, and all of a sudden Catholics were deemed to be progressive, well, so be it. I think it's
like one time I was asked, am I capitalist or socialist? And I said, neither, I'm Catholic.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's the other thing people, I think, and again, I think it speaks to the polarization of people and this, social media, bite-sized, 120 characters or less world, where people have developed 3-second attention spans and completely lost I could speak for days about this, but completely lost the ability to deal with nuance, to pull apart ideas. Like I would call myself a moderate, if anything, where the first thing I'll do when talking about a big topic is I want to pull it apart and figure out what I like and what I don't like, or to pull something apart and put it together in pieces where I can say, this is why I believe. What I love about Catholicism is you interweave natural law, a bit of common sense, and a whole lot of logic, and you can usually support a lot of Catholic perspectives, but there's that building block process. Whereas people now, it's, as soon as you supported Trump, you were a right wing, blah blah blah, and if you supported Biden, you were a left wing, blah blah blah. But there was no nuance, and that's why I liked the fact that we're discussing Jordan Peterson, because I like a lot of what he says, and I don't like some of what he says. I'm allowed to agree with some and not agree with some, okay. But people are going to throw you, unfortunately, with this like identity politics and this bite-sized, memified political discourse that we've got. It's impossible to really have the platform to.
Mind you, can I just say, and you brought up an incredibly valid point. You know what that is? The act of disagreement. People think that Catholics don't disagree with each other. We disagree with each other on so many different things.
Absolutely.
Which is perfectly fine. Like we do. We have our dogmas and our teachings that they're fundamentally core. But once again, if you just go back to the period of the scholastics, my God, they're absolutely bashing each other on some mining points. Aquinas disagree with Anselm. John Dot scholars disagree with Aquinas. I know people get a bit offended by this, but yes, there's been people who disagree with Aquinas' teachings. That's perfectly fine. It's not dogma. So I agree with you. We've actually lost that art of disagreeing. But then I want to ask a bit of a personal one, and that is, there was a bit of a scandal a few years ago. It wasn't really a scandal, but let's just talk about it, where Pope Francis was recorded in saying that he agrees in laws being passed to protect the rights of people with these homosexual tendencies, in the sense that if they are in relationships, we should be passing these laws that protect them while they're in these relationships. And that the whole Catholic world went nuts. And I don't know if you can find that article, but the whole Catholic world went nuts because you got split into two camps. You either said, no, that's morally wrong, even though he's not really touching on marriage, but no, it's morally wrong, or yes, he's absolutely right. And there was nobody in between that was kind of saying, look, he said this right, he said that wrong, let's just move on with our lives. So that's why I wanted to ask you, have you ever drawn that line? Have you ever thought about that line? Where you have to think, okay, yes, my morals do say this, but legally, we should implement these laws in order to protect them because of the fact they are in these relationships anyways. Should we be implementing these laws? I know this is getting, sorry, that's quite a big question.
I remember that interview he had. It was an interview.
Look, mind you, I he was speaking in Spanish, so I didn't know what the heck he was talking about. Like, really. So the subtitles could be completely wrong.
I waited until a Franciscan brother put out the translation. And I think that got misconfused.
Yeah, that got confused. That's why
what he said, but he had some.
Yeah, here we go. Here's the article. Sorry.
Yeah.
And thank you to our producer Emma. God bless you.
So quick.
Yeah.
Jane just sacked too.
She's the female James. Anyways, so in this article, Pope Francis explicitly said this: homosexual people have a right to be in a family. They are children of God and have a right to a family. Nobody should be thrown out or be made miserable over it. What we have to create is a civil union law. That way they are legally covered. I stood up for that. That's what he said. So it's not even about protecting within couples.
It's not about the couple, protecting the couple itself, but it's, so for example, the way that the analogy that the Franciscan brother used, and I might have been, again, butchering it, he said, if someone's son or daughter has homosexual tendencies and they do tend to choose to go down that path, you don't throw them out, you choose to act with love, and you choose to continue to love them for who they are, not what they're doing. And I don't completely disagree with that at all, because at the end of the day, they're still a human being. You love the person, hate the sin.
Yeah, but that's why I wanted to touch about, because that that caused a divide, whether we like it or not.
It did
Whether
cause a
we-
divide.
It caused a divide.
I got my phone blew up. Like friends that were texting me, they're like, "Oh my gosh, Michael, did you see this? What did he mean by that?" I'm like, "It's in Spanish. Wait for it to get translated first, and then I'll let you know my opinion." And then by the end of the night, I ended up finding a translation, and like I didn't completely disagree with it. Of course, it got miscommunicated before it got translated, obviously by many people. But like at the end of the day, how many times do we hear that someone's family has disowned them because of certain beliefs? Whether a Christian family has disowned their son or daughter for converting to Islam, or vice versa, or a Christian dad has disassociated with his son because he's gay. At the end of the day, he still needs love. Like your son's always gonna be your son, your daughter's always gonna be your daughter. You still need love and care. You might not say, you know what, I agree with the relationship and that you're entitled to do that, but to throw them out or to completely disown them it's probably going to put more fuel to the fire and actually open that wound that they already have even further.
But also say it's un-Catholic.
Yeah, but like we all agree, like we're all sitting here. I don't think anybody, unless everyone wants to disagree with us, but I don't.
The double comes up.
That's what I wanted to touch on. Like, have we gotten to the point that because there's the law and there's our morals, immediately when the law starts to apply things, have people just placed the line so low that the moment that even attempts to imply anything that we consider immoral, immediately we're just going to shut it down, as if it's immoral?
Well, slavery was once legal.
Can you let the lawyer speak?
No.
I didn't.
I was actually gonna use that as one of my. You go, because I'll build on that.
Oh no, you build on that. I'm just like I just threw a.
Yeah.
Like slavery was legal, you're absolutely right. But that's I'm trying to get down to the root of why the heck we've even gotten to this situation in the first place.
And I think that the issue is like I said, that the law has always been a reflection of what we as a society consider to be right and wrong. And as we create new definitions for what is right and what is wrong and what is accepted and what is not accepted, the law will change to follow that. The law is extremely malleable. It can change all the time. It can change. Look at the same-sex referendum. The homosexual marriage referendum. Like
it just came like that.
In the course of 2 years, it changed.
In America, the abortion case.
Roe v. Wade.
That's the one.
Yeah, Roe v. Wade got overturned. And I love arguing with people about that. It's so
That's always
funny.
a great conversation.
It is so funny because people. Again, a story for another time. But people. I think to go back to your point, it is our job as Catholics to continue to protect vulnerable people from laws that are going to hurt them. And it's our job to champion and uphold our Catholic moral values, which we know are the right values. I'm not going to say right or wrong in terms of someone who's not Catholic doesn't have the right values, but but it's more like there will come a time, usually at some point, where the law and what we believe morally are going to come into conflict. And I think that is when we need to be very, very clear on what we believe, why we believe it, and how a particular law or the effects of a particular law will fly in the face of that. Key example was the legislation that came in where a 150 meter radius outside of the entrance to an abortion clinic or the entrance to a building in which an abortion clinic was located, you could no longer, talk to people who were going in there for an abortion. Now, in that one law spoke to a situation where you could have people on every side of the fence. For example, the right to, speak to someone really gently in a Catholic way and to remind them that they have a choice. To speak to them about, the realities of the abortion procedure and how there's a human life. And then you have the people who said, well, people are getting harassed by idiots who are telling them that they're going to go to hell as they're walking in there. And this person is, maybe uneducated, maybe under duress, may not be Catholic, may not understand the moral implications of what they're doing. They may be under pressure from a partner. So you had all of these, do you know what I mean? Like these Catholic and non-Catholic sensical arguments all in conflict over a law, and people were arguing about what this law was the effect of what this law was going to be. And I think that's where the opposition usually comes from, is we've understood, especially over time, you look at the way that our society and the laws have changed with regards to the LGBTQ community and all of that since the same-sex marriage referendum. You look at how quickly things have changed.
Absolutely.
And that's why people argued. I remember hearing people talking about this is the thin end of the wedge, and we start with this, it's going to come with all of this because, this is the plan and these are all of the ideas around it, but people were really up in arms about it, speaking about the future effects of this law on society, what it means for the creation of new laws, what it means for, flow-on effects in schools, like the Safe Schools program, for example. And so I think that's where people will draw the line and will argue, tooth and nail about these things, because it's more than just the law, even in its own context. It's about what it means for society and what it means for the future.
Let's word the question a bit more direct. Does the Catholic, or can a Catholic, morally agree with the civil rights of a couple who has homosexual urges to get married civilly?
In my view, civilly,
Yes. You're entitled to your opinion.
legally, yes, but sacramentally, no. Is it marriage? No.
Okay.
And I think that's probably where I would start from.
Yeah. And that's why I want to bring it up, because it's been brought up before ever so briefly, in the sense that, like, you can affirm their right to do so, because there is a view of the government that they shouldn't be even getting involved in this kind of stuff anyway. So if these people want to get married, then so be it. Like, get out of their way. And then it's our responsibility to show them the moral right way. Then the alternative argument is, no, the government should halt it because of the fact that it's morally wrong. But here's the thing, and this is what I think we've gotten to. We have gotten to a government that is so completely secular that the end goal of heaven isn't even a thing. Like, when they factor in legislation. It's not a thing whatsoever.
Yep.
Because if it was a thing, they wouldn't be legalizing half of the stuff.
Yep.
That's just a fact. So, to bring up the Greeks, and you mentioned it, and I think you'll like this analogy. Socrates, the great Greek philosopher, hated democracy. Despised it. And the reason why he hated it was because he built this analogy. He said, if you've got a boat, and you want to get this boat from point A to point B, who do you hire? Who do you recruit? And obviously, the answer is an experienced salesman, right? Or salesperson, whatever.
Wait. You wanted to move
You want this boat to travel from point A to point B safely.
salesperson or sale SAIL? I don't know why I thought SALES.
You want them to sell the boat on the...
I thought that.
Yeah, I'd hire the best ship captain in all the land and get him to take my boat from point A to point B.
So why the heck
Captain Jack
are
Sparrow.
we just allowing every Tom, Dick, and Harry to get involved in politics? Like, seriously, when you think about it. And then there's a valid point. Everyone's allowed to vote. Anybody can really run for politics. Doesn't really matter. There's no real requirement besides the fact you have to pay this fee.
Well, I think because politics is inherently ideological. You don't need to be educated or even qualified to have an idea and to argue it.
So then, and that's exactly my point. Is Socrates, a bloke that lived 3,000 years ago, whatever it was, spot on? That democracy is actually going to lead to the demise. We view it as the champion of Western society, but in reality, it's going to end up leading to our demise. Am I getting too deep?
No,
A little bit.
I've got two views on that, or 2 points on that. The first is, look at the alternative. It does not work out well.
What's the alternative?
Your autocracy, or, dictatorship,
Dictatorship.
And you look at all the countries that have a one person or one family, or a royal family, and they are usually socialist or communist in some respect, and the country is in ruins. I think democracy actually paves the way for the most amount of freedom, because it should be championing the freedom of the ideas and the freedom of expression and the battle of ideology, with the effect that everyone is entitled to argue what they believe, but really, I guess in a perfect world, the people with the right morals should be involved in politics and involved in government, because they are So let me take this even one step further back.
That's okay.
I think when we had the idea of democracy, I guess the idea was it would be, both sides would be morally on the same page, I guess, in a perfect world, but they'd be arguing about other things like minimum wages or investments in schools and things like that. But now we've got two opposing ideologies, and one is more popular than the other. So I don't think it's not the mechanism of democracy. I think it may be something broader than that.
Are we going back to original sin? Are we essentially saying that democracy in a perfect world would work if it wasn't for the fact that humanity's fallen?
I would even take it one step before that and say that the decline in morality in society means that we have people elected into government who are championing laws and ideologies that are completely counter-Catholic and are completely immoral. That I think is your source, because if the number of people in Australia who tick Catholic on a
ballot,
thank you, or on a
Census.
Thank you. That was awesome. But if the number of people who actually tick Catholic on a census form actually live their life, and again, no one's perfect, but all strived to live their life in that way and to teach their kids in that way, we would have two sides of government that would probably agree morally on most Catholic ideologies.
But because it's not, they don't really have. But see, here's the thing. Are we then implying that really the perfect political system... Actually, no. I'm not going to even say that. Because I was going to say that the perfect system would be the church just leading everything. But even then... So really what it sounds like is we can't wait for the return of Jesus Christ just so he can just take over the world. That's really what it's...
Thinking about that, actually, I got approached by, I don't know if she was Protestant, Catholic. She said multiple different things. Her dad was Protestant or is Protestant and mom's Catholic. She was, I don't know. I think she said she's half-half. Like it's a race or something.
Half Protestant, half Catholic.
And they actually thought that yesterday's blood moon or lunar eclipse was the return of Jesus. And I'm like, oh, I wish.
Well, you know what?
I think we'd know about it.
Yeah, I think the greatest argument against anyone who thinks they can calculate the return of Christ is just look at the history and look at the amount of people that have failed time and time again.
He literally said,
nobody's got it right.
I'm going to come at the thief of night. No one's going to know.
No one's going to know, so just get over it.
It's going to be wars and rumors of wars. Super specific. Yeah. I know exactly when that's going to happen. What do you mean?
And that's why I like Rodney's response to this kind of question.
It's always tomorrow.
No, you're right. But he always says that really people who fixate on this question, they're trying to buy themselves as much time as possible.
Yeah, it's kind of like, all right, now that I've predicted here, I'm gonna start getting ready from here. It's like they're planning an event or something. It's like, okay, I've got 5 days to get ready for it. I'm gonna start from the Monday if he's coming on the Friday.
Should we speak about the COVID lockdowns with Jonah?
This is how casual Catholic conversation started.
I actually had a feeling this was going to happen when I jumped on.
Yes. How the heck do we even start a conversation? It's inevitably going to get started, so let's just think of a way of rolling it, and that is, firstly, Jonah, let me put it in a different way.
I'm doing really well, thanks.
Thank God. People would usually ask, like, what did the government do that you disagree with during that time, during the pandemic?
Yep.
Let me ask you an alternative question. What did the government do right? Like, when you look at that entire thing, what did they do right?
Probably going to caveat my answer with this, which is, naturally, everyone's got a different perspective and a way of doing things. So I'm probably going to, some people are going to agree with me and some are going to disagree with me. So I'm not going to speak as a position of, ultimate authority saying this was the right way and this, what they did was wrong. But I think, I don't even know. It's to be honest, actually,
I love how you have to whisper that.
Yeah, I did. I promise you. I really did. Because I think it was, in my view, there was so there was so much that, whether it was done for the right or wrong reasons, or whether it was done in the right or wrong way, had such widespread negative consequences on people.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to say that they did something right. Like those 11 a.m. conferences every day, people fixating on the numbers and that constant message of stay home, trust no one, you never know. And,
Don't
the
talk to your
effective,
neighbor, yeah.
the isolationism of it, don't, when you go to the shops, don't say hello to anyone. Now is not the time for chit chat, keep your mask on, get in, get out. And seeing my family on freaking Zoom, sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this, but seeing my family on, Zoom and FaceTime for months on end, not being able to see my loved ones. And, all of when my grandmother passed away, we were still in lockdown. We had to sit outside the nursing home, and her body was there in one of the rooms that had a window to outside, and we were there sort of on lawn chairs, with the family. Only my uncle, being the oldest of the 5 boys, was allowed in because he was her primary doctor. At a funeral, only the brothers and my grandfather were allowed.
Can I just add a point to that? And if you're watching this, you know who you are. A friend of mine just had a baby. His wife had the baby, not him.
Thank you for clarifying.
He has COVID, was allowed in the delivery room. That's how much times have changed. He was allowed in the delivery room with COVID. This happened a couple of days ago.
Wow.
And I'm just like, what?
Yeah. But
I got upset with him. I'm like, oh, you're not going to see the delivery of your baby? He goes, no, I'm in the room now. I'm like, what do you mean in the room? He goes, yeah, they let me in. I'm like, but you got COVID? He goes, I'm like, did you tell me you got COVID? He goes, yeah. I'm only in the delivery room, but then from the delivery room, I have to go home and then come back just to the delivery room. I'm like, okay, fair enough.
look, that's
How much
quite
times have
astonishing to
changed?
hear about what happened a few months ago in comparison to now. It's quite astonishing. But the reason why I bring it up is because it was funny. I was at uni and I was doing a unit which was logical and critical thinking, which was one of the funnest units I've ever done. And at the end of every class, we'd have a discussion about a hypothetical scenario. And the scenario, no word of a lie, before they locked us down the first time, was about whether or not you could mandate a vaccine. Not even kidding with you. It was in this hypothetical situation where you had this tribe and there was this disease.
Imagine they actually knew what was happening. They got divine inspiration.
Welcome to casual conspiracy conversations. We should actually stop that. Anywho.
Absolutely not.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Slippery slope.
Yeah.
We're going to start talking about the moon landing.
Yeah.
We're going to finish with the mark of the beast. And it's going to be terrible.
Flat Earth.
Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome.
Actually, there is one question I really need to ask, Neil deGrasse Tyson. If you could get him on the show so I can ask him this question.
Oh, please do.
I follow a couple of those pages. And it's just fun. I follow a few...
Does he believe the Earth is flat?
No. But I want to ask him this
Jesus.
question because he's an expert. But I follow a few of those pages. I like keeping up to date with what people think, out there outside of my camp, and it's good to know where they're up to and things like that. But I had one person who asked a question. I really thought it was a good question, which was, if the Earth if the universe is ever expanding and we're hurtling through space and stuff, then how come we see the same constellations in the sky every night on this rotating?
Well, that's actually a simple response.
Oh. So I don't get to meet Neil deGrasse Tyson? No. Oh.
No, I already, I don't mean to brag, I'm not a scientific expert, but what Neil deGrasse Tyson would essentially say, which is true, that the light that travels from the stars to the Earth takes billions of years to get here. So you think you're looking at the same stars. In reality, those stars have already changed, but because the light hasn't gotten to us yet, we're still looking at the same thing. It's crazy. If you guys want to get on the general theory of relativity about time, please do let me know, but we're going to need more whiskey. We'll probably book that in for another episode. Anyways, back on the topic of the vaccine mandate. So we're having this conversation, and it was funny because majority of the class agreed, at least from the first scenario, that mandating the vaccine is morally okay.
Wait, was COVID already in existence then?
No. It was, but we weren't locked down. It wasn't really a thing in Australia yet.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the week after that we got locked down. It was kind of funny. It was really good timing. Anywho, I bring it up because, once again, kind of a split in the community. People will say, vaccine mandates, morally okay. Others will say morally wrong. Now, forget about hindsight, because with the benefit of hindsight, we can turn around and just say the whole thing was stupid.
Yep.
But in the moment,
Yep.
the mandating of a vaccine, considering the situation, the Catholic Church outright says no. Like, the vaccine should never be mandated, no matter what. However, let's not worry about the vaccine. Let's worry about lockdowns, for example. Were the lockdowns morally okay?
No.
Bloody hell. Okay.
I'm gonna approach your vaccine mandate
Without
question.
hindsight. Sorry to without hindsight. Like, you have to go back to the moment, place yourself in the situation and think, did the government make a good call? In the moment.
And I think you can probably apply the same answer to all of that.
Yes.
Which was probably two things. The first idea is, before I give my first point, I'll tell a quick story. So people, those Facebook profile picture filters that you can add to profile picture. So one went around about the vaccine saying, and it had "my body, my choice" or something like that on it. And a few of my Catholic friends put it on there in reference to the vaccine, being like, "Oh, it's I can choose whether or not." I had a few friends come up to me and say, like, "Well, isn't that flying in the face of what you believe in terms of abortion, where people say it's my body, my choice, and we reject that argument?"
Not inherently, not necessarily. But
Correct. And the idea was, I thought it was like super funny, but obviously the idea is as well, when it comes to abortion, it's not actually your body.
That's exactly
per
the point.
se. And then I think is really the key difference is, we as Catholics, the Catholic teaching has rules in terms of what we can and can't do to other people.
Yes.
It does not force what we must do to ourselves.
Can we just?
We can build on that even more, but yeah.
But
I was about to say, can we just not highlight the fact that it's rules? It's more so beliefs, just so we're not like. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's not really rules. Like, it's not. These are the rules. It's more so these are the beliefs that a Catholic has, or the Catholic Church has.
Yeah, like, you can say teachings.
Okay, sorry, Mr.
Because I don't know, I think beliefs is just a bit arbitrary. It's like, I believe this, like, what to do that day. Like, if it's the Catholic teachings.
Catholic teaching, But I think what seemed apparent to me, at least, all the way through this COVID situation was the government was making decisions that didn't seem to really be grounded in science or even in a scientific consensus.
Yeah.
It seemed arbitrary all the way through. And I know that we had forced vaccines in the past. I remember, I think it was it smallpox or something that was like polio that was like rocketing around Europe, and
polio was
and Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter being like, we need to, and it was a whole thing. But we've had forced mandates in the past.
Yes.
But in circumstances where at no point was there scientific proof that the vaccine actually cured COVID or prevented against COVID. It was you got it and you could still get it and you could still spread it, and you'll have to get more than one. You'll have to get boosters, and so and even like the 5 meters rule. In terms of social distancing, the masks, they never at least appeared to me, and I could be completely wrong. I didn't read up and down on this issue and that sort of thing, but it just seemed, from what I was reading, and I tried to keep up to date with everything that was going on anyway, but it never seemed apparent to me that there was a scientifically coherent or scientifically agreed, sensical approach to these decisions that made them correct in terms of applying to this situation.
I agree 100%. The only thing I'm going to add, though, is in the moment, especially when it was introduced, maybe like scientifically, okay, but I can at least understand the rationale a bit in locking down everyone straight away. Because the idea was, this is a new disease. We haven't really interacted with it before.
It wasn't new, but it was a new variation of existing
variation.
disease.
So we kind of just like shut the whole thing down, and we wanted to figure it out. And that's why Look, in the beginning, New South Wales wasn't too bad. We were locked down for a month or so, in the beginning at least, and then we gradually started to open up back again. But look, I think overall, like when I think in the moment, what really upset me the most, and I can only speak about the Catholic community because I myself am Catholic, is honestly, if we just all read the church's document, we would have been perfectly fine. We really would have. But people kept ignoring the church's document for a reason. The church's document was one of the most clear, concise things I've ever read in my life. It was, if you want the vaccine, you're okay, because you're not like morally responsible for what occurred. And if you don't want it, that's perfectly fine as well, because it can't be morally obligated. So that's it. Leave it at that.
Yep.
But for whatever reason, and this is where I speak so I speak much about politics, because I think it gets to the point where we start to mingle the two, as if politics becomes our religion or religion becomes our politics.
Yep.
Really, if you just stuck with your faith, it would have been perfectly fine. Our community would have been fine. But Alters and I would know we witnessed so much divide in our community during that time.
Horrendous.
So much divide, too much divide. But it honestly, like, the answer was clear and concise. So I'm just trying to think, have we gotten to the point where we fixate more on politics than we do on our faith? Like,
yes, I think yes, but also I'm going to take you back one step, because I think the other thing was, unfortunately, putting aside what the Catholic Church was teaching, there were real world consequences to getting the vaccine or not getting the vaccine.
that's true as well.
The vast majority of people I know, including myself, got the vaccine under threat of losing my job.
That's very
Or not
true.
being able to see my family, or not being able to get groceries, or not being able to travel, or whatever the case was. So we got it under, it was implied coercion. It was, we're not going to force you to, but if you are unvaccinated, you can't do, here's a list.
Never morally
anything.
okay, yeah.
You can't go to the movies. You can't go to the shops. You can't visit the doctor. You can't visit your family. You can't be, more than 5K's radius outside of your home. And so that for me was the real kicker, which was people were in a real conflict about, what should I be allowed to do morally? What should I be allowed to do? What does the Catholic Church teach? And what decision am I going to make, staring down the barrel of all of these real world consequences to my decision?
They place a lot of pressure on people, which is unfortunate.
But that for me was the biggest divide.
Yeah.
It was, oh, you're getting the vaccine, so you're a sheep, you're going to do whatever the government tells you. And then it was, oh, well, you're not getting the vaccine, you're uneducated, and you think it's going to be the mark of the beast, and you're just stubborn. You know what I mean? And so people, that I think really conflated the situation.
I agree.
If the entire time the law had been, if you want it, get it. If you don't want it, don't get it. And we're going to put it out there. If people get it, we're going to see what happens. We're going to look at the data. And then if it's not working, or if it's working a little bit, we'll make a new decision. I.e., if we let people get the vaccine if they want to, we can look at the data to see if they still get COVID, for example, if they still spread it. And then obviously, if it looks like the vaccine's not working, we'll go back to the drawing board. In the meantime, your call is your call. That was never the case. We had a vaccine that was pushed through under like emergency FDA authorization, was never comprehensively confirmed as curing COVID. We knew that beforehand and afterwards.
Or preventing it.
And we had people who were going to lose their jobs if they didn't get it.
Yeah.
The most conflicted I ever was actually in that period was I had to draft a mandatory vaccination employment policy for one of my firm's clients when I was working at one of my old firms. And that was a real time where I was, and now naturally it was the employer's discretion. They were entitled to under the law. They'd instructed us to do it. What was I supposed to do? I'm not going to say no because I need a paycheck. I guess that was sort of the...
Can I ask though? I don't want to place this just as a hypothetical, but I'll find this an interesting conversation. In moments like this, because I've spoken to a few other people as well that work in HR, for example, and they would have to speak to people who hadn't put in the vaccine certificate. So they had to send them a warning letter or even sacking letter or whatever it was.
Yep.
And this is only hypothetical. I'm not judging anybody. But as a Catholic, should we get to the point where we say, man, stuff this job?
100%.
Like, I'd rather just get sacked and go through this. Like,
There were people who did that. There were people who resigned and left their jobs and just copped it because they knew they felt very deeply that there was just something inherently wrong about doing something under coercion. So 100%. And I think that will always be the case though. It starts with, one of my old firms, did it was an Ida Hobbit day. It was like the International Day Against Homophobia and something. It was a day.
What's it called?
Ida Hobbit. It's an acronym. It was essentially like a day against discriminating against homosexual people. Essentially, was the notion, and everyone put on the rainbow flags and things like that. Yeah, the purple tie, yada yada. And I will confess this: I don't think I put the rainbow pin on, but I posed for a photo because they wanted to get all the firms were, look at us, we're doing Ida Hobbit Day and everyone's having a great time and yada yada. And I felt really, if I could have my time again, I wouldn't have done it. But at the time, I was just, I guess, you sort of, that part of you kicks in where, you don't want to be confrontational and you don't want to, almost like you don't want to be exposed. It's almost like you're flying under the radar and it's all fine until, you come face to face with a decision and...
I give you a lot of credit, Jonah. That's really brave of you, brother, to even admit that. Like, when you look back at it now.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people would almost be in denial.
Stop judging him, Stefan.
I'm not joking. Well, this is one of the...
Setting him up.
What a long Ida Hobbit. International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, Intersexism, and Transphobia. Ida Hobbit.
Yep.
That's the one.
Like, who's going to remember that?
You lost me at international.
Who's going to remember that from now? Anyways.
That's why they acronize it, Stefan.
Yeah, but still, like
I know.
I'm not going to remember Ida Hobbit, bro. Are you going to remember Ida Hobbit?
What?
Ida Hobbit. Anywho.
Now that there's a lot of workplaces that I know and a lot of friends of mine who actually got sacked. Like, I actually left one of my jobs when the vaccine first came out. They said, "Oh, you surely have to get it." And they actually ran a survey. 97% of the workplace said, "Yeah, we should mandate it." 3% said no. I was the 3%. It was when it first came out, and obviously you don't know the result that's going to happen. You hear one thing, you hear another thing. You have conflicting. I spoke to 20, 30 doctors, all had conflicting research on it, and I spoke to friends of mine who were in the field, nurses and other fields within the medical practices. And they were either for the lockdown, against the lockdown. I personally, without hindsight, then and there, lockdown probably would have worked if they did it correctly. They didn't do it correctly, unfortunately. But to do it for the extended period that they did it in, when they realized it wasn't working, it was still freaking spreading, then maybe not extend it for that long, or don't put silly rules like you only can exercise outside for 1 hour a day. Like, who the frick is timing me? Who's coming next to me and timing me? You've been out for 59 minutes, go back home.
Actually, you know what? That is a valid point. I'm hoping that they would have learned lessons of it. But I think we as a community have learned some really fundamental.
I think Catholics have learned to stand up for themselves, if anything.
That too.
But I think that the respect of agreeing to disagree,
especially
the respect towards differing opinions, I think was the biggest thing. I hope that we learn and we take away from this, because even if someone believes something that goes against Catholic teaching, like you said before, altars, it's our job still to love them, but to disagree with them. The same thing as love the sinner, hate the sin. Jesus wined and dined with the tax collector and the prostitute, and he told the woman who's being stoned, "Go and sin no more."
Yes.
He also said, "Don't stone the chick. She's a human being. Leave her the heck alone." But then he also said, "You're not exactly doing the right thing here. Don't do it anymore." But I think again we lost that nuance. We lost that. We lost that respect. But I think, and this is something I do think that we were all we were all suffering with this anxiety and this conflicting rules and this ever-changing situation, and we were all stressed out and anxious and depressed and isolated, and it flared up. It aggravated so much of the conversations and the disputes and the discourse within and between families, and then that's what I think really poisoned the community. Whereas I think if next time, I'm hoping if something were to ever happen again with a similar vein, is we would have that room to hear each other out, but just to have that love and respect and patience, even if we disagreed with them. And I think that's really something that I hope that we learn for next time, because that the devil thrives on division.
Absolutely.
And I think we were just so, for whatever reason, inside and outside of our control, we were just so divided. And I think it really put a massive strain on family relationships.
Day 50. Do you head off?
Soon enough.
Soon enough. Bloody hell. Shall we continue recording while you head off?
No, I'll stay until I need to go.
No. You need to go by 9:30, don't you?
No, 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock?
It's
Yeah,
8:50.
we've got 10 more minutes of recording. Man, how long's it been? Emma, out of curiosity, what does it say on the computer?
1:37.
1:37.
Is it? Is it 1:37?
That's an hour and 37 minutes. Yeah, I know.
That's a long tangent. I don't know how we even got onto this in the
Can you guess how many seconds?
42.
Nah. 22. You're cool, quiet.
I was off by 20. Crucify me.
Okay. Since we've got it.
Joe's face.
It's like, why are the big explosion? Okay. Firstly, I had this idea in my head about this conversation that we'd be talking about youth ministry and Jono's work and then his life in the parish and his past life, and somehow we've managed the boundary between faith and
law.
the law, which I don't think we've actually finalized, so that's probably an episode for another day. We got into the COVID lockdowns. We're going to start a new show that's called Casual Conspiracy Conversations, which I look forward to starting, God willing.
Correct.
We'll have Jono as one of the hosts on that. So, Jono, last but not least, and we will actually get into youth ministry, because you are one of the leaders or the coordinators of Redeemed, which is the essentially the teens here. At
The
Christ Redeemer.
teens ministry at Christ the Redeemer.
Yeah, Christ Redeemer. It's called Redeemed.
Yeah,
What's the LED one called?
Teens. Faith and light. Or, no, I don't know. Teens. Huh? No, Faith and Fire is the youth ministry.
Yeah, Faith and Fire is the.
I run Faith and Fire with the spiritual committee.
Anyway, with the teens, I just wanted to ask you, firstly, why teens? Because I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm not trying to grow your head or anything, but you're an incredibly intellectual bloke. So when I think about someone like you, and you're quite a handsome fellow as well, like I'm thinking, you're going to be in something like with faith talks, where you're going to be speaking profoundly about theology or even philosophy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you're in teens. Now, it's not a disrespect to anyone that's in teens, but what I'm trying to say is people might not immediately come to that conclusion with you, and they might not even guess it with you. So why teens? Why did teens ministry? Why did you choose that? Why did you discern a calling towards teens ministry?
It's a good question, and I think for me, I remember being a teenager, and I remember thinking to myself as an adult, man, if I had someone who could capture me with the faith at that age and cut through all the noise and all the BS and just put me on the right path, I really would have been so much more insulated against a lot of the things that I struggled with, and
Wow.
I would have felt a lot more powerful in this increasingly anti-Christic, secular, sinful world. I think it's probably worth mentioning that again, like I think in my context, you know, I remember, you know, being a teenager and those moments when, you know, someone you respected or looked up to, when they, you know, pulled me in and made me feel like I was someone and I had value or worth, or, you know, I was respected, but just that I had value, those moments like changed my life. And I think for me to be that for someone else, to be that for a kid or a teen or someone who's struggling, I think that was really what drove me to be in teens ministry. It started with the youth because I experienced that, you know, as part of my coming back into my faith. And I can tell that story if there's still time, but a big part of that was, you know, people who I met who I instantly respected and looked up to, remembering my name, you know, inviting me to events and just treating me like
family.
Like I was
very important. Yeah.
like it just not even more than a human being, but treating me like it was important that I was there. They were so glad that I was there with them. You know, there wasn't a sense of obligation. Oh, we're going to invite Jono because we're inviting everyone. It was, Jono, you have to come. You've got to be here. It's going to be great. You know, we can't wait to see you. And then when I got there, it was, we're so glad you came. You know, we were just talking, you know. So for me, I had those moments. And so I think for me, it's between having that experience myself and wanting to replicate it, and then knowing what it, you know, those struggles of being a teenager and just the importance of formation. And especially now, and we've had this conversation before at length, is the need for, I think, to really take the gloves off and be a little brutal and a little transparent with how we go about forming these kids in the Catholic faith, because the world has taken its gloves off. What used to be implicit and taboo and on the fringes and only if you look for it and only, you know, visible by your curiosity, is now out there, explicit, in your face for all to see wherever you go. On the TV, on your phone, in the classroom, it's everywhere. And I think so, especially when it comes to things like apologetics and teaching on those big moral issues, euthanasia, abortion, pornography, you know, purity, chastity, all of those things, we need to really level up and not be afraid to say the rude words, because believe me, the world is doing it. And again, if they're not going to be formed in the church, and I think you mentioned something before about, you know, the church sort of tiptoeing, and it has maybe tiptoed around a lot of these issues before. I think it's time that we confronted them head on, because if the kids aren't formed, like I learned about sex from like a friend of mine at school. Didn't get the talk at Redfield, which is a topic of its own. Didn't get the talk at home, as far as I'm aware of, but I got it at school. And with all the other topics that come with sex, got all of that at school as well. And I think for me, the biggest struggle that I find, and because I'm one of five, I've got two younger sisters who are 17 and 14, Grace and Gabrielle. And I always feel with them that I often feel that fear, and I feel like my parents and all parents would feel this too, is if I'm the one to broach this topic with them for the first time, I'm going to be the one who destroys that innocence. I don't want to pull the lid off the Pandora's box. You know?
Yes.
But what I've realized is we have to, because someone else is doing it out there in the ether. Someone else is going to do that before we do. And I think we need to. And in the wrong way too. And in the wrong way too. So I think there needs to be a little bit of biting the bullet from a parent or from a youth minister or from a priest or from a whatever perspective, which is I've got to just be comfortable with pulling the lid off this Pandora's box and introducing a teenager to a heavy duty idea that they may not have been exposed to before. And yet I run the risk of doing it earlier than maybe I should have or would have, but at least I do it. And by me doing that, I let them know that it's okay to talk to me about it. You know, my parents didn't talk to me about a lot of the stuff around sex and purity. And so I probably didn't feel like I could talk to them about that. And my parents, credit to them, they've always kept a very open door policy with me. I can bring whatever. But I still had to mature enough to feel like I could bring these topics to them. And even some of them I still didn't. Whereas I think if they'd been the ones to instigate that, to open that door and say, we're going to talk about
XYZ.
XYZ, and I want you to know that you can talk to me about this whenever. Especially you look at like the number of like more than 80% of boys between the ages of I think 11 and 14 have viewed.
I think it's actually younger now. I think it's as young as 8.
And
view pornography.
Yeah.
you're gonna get that with an increasingly digitized
That's
society.
true.
And so I think that really has doubled down. Like I said, it's really elevated the importance of parents leading the formation at home and not being afraid to confront those topics.
You mentioned a valid point, and I know that we're time restricted, so I'm going to keep it brief. When you read about the early church, and you think about why was, St. Paul, St. Peter, St. John, why were these blokes traveling so much? It's because there was heresies that were going around, and they knew the threat of it, and they were running around like crazy in order to beat it. And they beat it. So you bring up an incredibly valid point, Jonah, in the sense that indeed it may be time in which the leaders of the church, because the church's teachings are spot on, but the leaders of the church, they step up, they take the gloves off, and they say, let's go. Battle on, challenge accepted. And
Absolutely.
one of the realms that I think is definitely a realm, and I'm going to talk about this more next time we bring you on, because there's so many different things that we have to talk about. But next time we bring you on, definitely the realm of social media. We have to be
big time
active on that, and a lot better than what we actually bring on that. Because I don't know about you all, but sometimes the church stuff that you watch, it's just cringy in comparison to everything else. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, with that, it's been an hour and 47 minutes. So,
oh my God,
it's been an absolute pleasure.
And 25 seconds?
No, 45.
Close again.
You're just 20 seconds behind all the time.
Or in front.
Oh, yeah, true.
Oh, by the way, thank you, Emma. At 14 years old, 84.4% of males have watched porn. And 57% of females have watched porn at the same age of 14. Which is another topic that I want to bring up, because a lot of times pornography is just spoken about with the guys, but really we don't bring it up with the girls. Jonah, we have this wonderful tradition at Triple C where we ask the guests to send us off in a prayer. So if you please lead us in prayer.
Wait, what if we one day get a Muslim guest on?
Then we'll follow them. Why would you bring that up now?
You could bring Shabo Raish on. He's a convert from Islam.
Yeah, but
He didn't convert, did he? Almost.
he was close. I was listening to his actually, Shobo Ray shall be in contact soon. But yeah, he was close. Anywho, you're Catholic, so he can pray. Right?
Thank God.
That's okay? Thank you, God. John, if you can lead us in prayer, that'd be awesome, bro.
All right. In the name of the Father and the Son. Dear Lord, we thank you for the gift of friendship. And we thank you for the gift of community and the unity and love that comes with that, because you are a Trinitarian God. You are a family God, a God that is in communion with one another, in unity with one another. We ask you, Lord, to bless all of us and our families, the intentions on our hearts, the things that we hold most dear. We know that you know them, Lord, and we give them over to you. And we pray that as we continue to grow in faith together, and as we continue to reach out to those in our world, those both in our community and outside of it, those who are struggling, those who are confused and angry, that we may, by the way that we live our lives, bear witness to your love and be a true disciple and a true follower, in that we may liberate and evangelize others in the way that we are, in who we are, in how we conduct ourselves. And we ask this through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Amen. In the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Jonah, thank you very much once again.
Cool.
Thank you for everybody listening, watching, however the heck you